Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast.
Welcome to the show, Marta. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm good. I know we were just talking about before we started recording how we're both like kind of tired. We've been working really hard, but that's what we're going to talk about today is your book and your retreats, all the things you're doing to help people stop from burnout. But I want to go back to the beginning, like talk a little bit about your life and what originally brought you to France.
Well, I'm one of those that just fell in love with Paris. And, there was a special connection for me with the city. My husband proposed to me in Paris in front of the Eiffel Tower. And then, each anniversary or special birthday, we tried to come over and just spend time. There's just something magical about the city for me. I feel at home there, here. And I feel really connected to the beauty of it. So I feel like something in me, and I hear many women say this, like something in me comes online. I start remembering a part of me that I had disconnected from when my feet are on the ground and I'm walking the pavement in Paris, like everything is okay with me. And so we had been coming for years, and then we had 2 kids and we started a business. And still every summer we would come back and just to do life, just to slow down the crazy pace of what it was like to be running a company and raising 2 kids. And we just, we just started to be more present to what was there. And there was just so much joy and just a slower pace and truly taking the time to, joie de vivre, right? Like just the joy of living. So like taking the long lunches and eating all the carbs, and we stopped running the race. And so each summer we would stay a little bit longer. And then in 2012, we stayed for 6 weeks. And then we just had such a hard time leaving that we started openly talking as a family about staying. Mm-hmm. And my kids had been in international schools for summer camps, and they really enjoyed the kids that were meeting there. And so we're like, okay, like, what if we just didn't go home and we just tried it out for a year? Yeah. And now we had that flexibility because of our business. We could take it anywhere. And so that we just stayed, like with our 4 summer suitcases, everyone had a bag, no plans, no long-term apartment, no schools. And it was like early August, which was like the worst time to find either a school or an apartment. And we just stayed. And so that's how we found ourselves living in Paris.
I love that. It was just like, well, let's go for it.
Totally.
And that brings me to my next topic is your new book, Unraveling. And I know you talk about in the book how all your dreams were coming true, like your business. You started, it was cheapcaribbean.com and it was going well. Your family was going, everything was going well. You're living in Paris. And then all of a sudden you're just like falling apart. You're unraveling. So talk a little bit about this book and what inspired it and what happened.
It's sort of unraveling is why I called it Unraveling is I was so happy in Paris, and it was, a dream come true to live there. And so the first year was like a honeymoon, like I found the school, I found that apartment. We had to move a few times to make it work, but everything was just like, wow. And oh my God. And for all of us, the kids were thriving. My husband loved it too. And the second year, it's just weird things started happening. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. But, looking back, it was over 9 years ago. Now I can make some sense of it. But I was a political refugee and an immigrant when I was a child. And so I grew up in Poland under communism. And I always lived with a sense of danger in my childhood. Yeah. And our home was raided. My mother was arrested and prison. She was a journalist because she was speaking up for the truth. And so when I was 12, we fled Poland, not telling anyone. And we fled to the United States, where I arrived after turning 13 in a refugee camp.
Wow.
And so I think then, the majority of my life I spent in this, what I call it, the becoming, right? Like I was the foreigner. I didn't speak English. I didn't really belong. And so I just survived by sort of like watching everyone and what they're doing and trying to like copy that. And so that's who I became. And so I built this persona of this American woman. And then that became an entrepreneur and a successful businesswoman. And, like sort of that's what everyone, all the women around me were doing that. And so I became it. And it was a lot, right? Coming from nothing. I mean, we came to the States with $1,200 and a loan for our airline tickets and having nothing. Yeah. And I worked my way to like running this company, 500 people reporting to me and several offices and just huge numbers in terms of sales. So it was like, wow, I've made it. And coming back to Paris, it was almost like, first, yes, life slowed down. The second year we sold our business. So like, oh, amazing. I just turned 39. I retired. But because some of the fast pace of life and the responsibilities that were on my head starting to dissipate and dissolve, I found myself in this space of like, who am I really, and my kids had a lot more independence in Paris, like there wasn't this, it's not this culture of like driving kids to play dates, right? They like take the bus and they do their own thing. And so I started all of a sudden to have space for me. And I started to realize that outside of the roles that I played for other people, like being a mother, being a wife, being a COO, I really didn't have a sense of who I was underneath that. Yeah. And so the question of who am I started to come up because I found myself in Paris in this community of foreigners and, people from everywhere with these beautiful and rich stories of who they were and where they came from. And so my normal survival task of copying what everybody else was doing around me wasn't working because everyone was so diverse, which I loved. And so then I started to question, like, how do I come as the true me when everyone's so different? And so it started me on this search for, oh my gosh, that little girl that left Poland and then who she became in America. And now I'm in France. Like it was the first time, right before I turned 40, where I asked myself, who am I? And because I wasn't really Polish anymore. I wasn't quite American. I was definitely not French. Yeah. And so it started this, at first it felt like lostness, and it came up for me as anxiety and panic attacks. And so my second year in France, I got diagnosed with a heart condition.
Wow.
And I was just scared and the unraveling, and it was just fear. And so I had no idea what was happening, but it was kind of like, now I like to say that like in the city of light, my dark childhood trauma came up to the surface to begin my healing process. And so that's the book, I write about that journey and the journey of my life, like how I had become the woman that I was at the time. And then getting to the point of like, my God, I got everything. I retired. I'm financially stable. I'm in France. My husband loves me and my kids are great.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's the outer shell, right? But yet something on the inside was unsettled, and then the journey into, well, what is that, and how do you tackle that? And sort of that's the journey I take the reader on with my book.
Oh, that's fascinating. And I mean, what a story to be told too. I mean, just from the outside, it's like this great success, like this immigrant, this refugee, and she didn't even speak English. And then she made this amazing company with her husband, but then still unhappy. So I think there's a lot to be said about that, because I think a lot of people sometimes feel like, why am I not happy? I have the money, I have the career, what's wrong with me? And now you run these sessions with SoulCare and Soul Leadership. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, great question and a great observation. Yeah, I think so often we look to our externals to make us happy, right? So like we think the bigger job or a better home or move to France or, whatever, like that thing that we're seeking, that the goal that we're trying to reach will make everything okay. Maybe the next relationship, maybe if I have children, maybe if I get this promotion. So what I discovered on my nearly a decade-long journey is really that all that, whatever it is that we're seeking, be it a purpose in life, or to feel fulfilled, or to feel joyous, or to feel, happy, to feel belonging. That was my thing as a refugee. The only way to kind of fulfill that is for it to come from within. So it's not what's on the outside, but it's yet how you feel, what's your internal experience. If, everywhere I went, I came as the foreigner and the one that I didn't belong. And so, of course, life presented me with plenty of evidence that I was right. I was always the outsider, never belonging. And I've learned that really I created a lot of that reality myself just by how I showed up, believing that I am the foreigner and the stranger. And the shift for me happened when I found belonging inside. So it's like I know who I am, and I show up as someone who actually belongs everywhere. And just that change in narrative, and that change in thinking, and that change in my belief shifted everything for me. So I started really to discover that answers to everything in life, whether it be true health or love, are really connecting with our own internal experience, where we live so disconnected from ourselves, from that true self, like that, what we are underneath what we do, the roles that we play in life, sort of connecting to that, which I believe is your soul. And living out of that space, I know who I am, and I'm coming already full of love, of belonging, of success, of abundance.
Yeah.
And then life presents me with, oh my gosh, that now becomes my reality, because I bring it forth from within. And so all my work is based on the concept that life really is an inside out process. So, as within, so without. And so soul leadership is my mentorship with leaders in any form, and basically reminding them that all leadership starts with self-leadership. How you lead yourself is how you'll lead your company. So if the company's wonky and, not really there, it all trickles down from the leadership. And so I love, there's this expression that says, as the leader goes, so does the company. As the leader's heart goes, so goes the leader. So really, in order to lead in a healthy and balanced way, we need to look after our own hearts. Yeah. And many successful entrepreneurs don't do that. We're so driven to achieve and succeed. And, I know this because I learned it myself. And like my burnout is what taught me that. Yeah. And so soul leadership is taking people on that journey, and just, leading and doing everything from the soul.
Why do you think that we disconnect from our souls in the first place?
Two things. One is trauma. So, and by trauma, I don't mean, that word is used so often now. It doesn't have to be that, something horrific happened to you when you were young. It could simply be that there was something that was lacking in your childhood. You didn't have enough nurture. You felt unseen. It could have been a relatively irrelevant event that happened to you, but it impacted you deeply on the inside. And so there's always a traumatic event. And then we find ways of coping with it that aren't quite healthy. So, we become super reactive. We become control freaks. We sort of develop this personality to avoid feeling the pain of that initial wounding situation. And and then the second thing is, the world tells us how to be. This is how to be a good woman. This is how to be a great wife. This is what a responsible mother does. This is what, a good daughter does. And so we follow these rules that are laid out versus following our hearts. Yeah. And so that's the massive disconnection. And then the second big thing is technology. I really think we've disconnected from our own pace or the natural pace of life that we should live at, which is, there are seasons to life. And like we talked about being tired before, there are seasons to be productive. There are seasons to rest. Yeah. So you can't constantly be living in this go, go, go. Yeah. And so much is thrown at us, on our phones. Like, we're constantly being bombarded with things to digest and ingest. We've forgotten how to rest and how to just be and breathe. And we're constantly living out of the space of doing. And that disconnects us from our soul too.
And do you believe that creativity is directly connected to our souls?
Oh my God, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, to connect to your soul, and I work with creatives a lot. It's sort of connecting to your soul is connecting to that life force within you, right? And creating anything new, especially, has to come from this like connection to that which is moving through you. Like there's something, if you're a creative person, there's something that you are here to bring forth, and something that wants to express itself through you. And so that's actually who I believe, you know, one of the biggest mistakes we make, we become our jobs or that thing that we're doing. But really, we're just who we are is the vessel for that life force, something bigger and greater than us that wants to flow through and be expressed through us. So we become this amazing vehicle. Like most artists, when they talk about creating a painting or writing a book or writing a song, they almost feel like they step out of the way and it just pours out of them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Like it's just like this force takes over, and then the next thing you know, like, I don't know, it just came through me. And you can get to that space when you can get rid of all the layers that are sort of hiding your true essence and your soul. It's sort of like removing the veils or like parting a curtain and like getting rid of all the stuff that's in the way of you seeing how much creative force actually is in you that wants to be expressed through you. So yeah, I totally think it's related.
Yeah, I completely agree. And just seeing how you talk about it, you know, it's really beautiful. And I think we all kind of know this, but it's hard sometimes to believe when we become so disconnected from ourselves and who we are and what we even liked. And I want to know, how did you get on this path? Like you could have chosen a different path. You could have chosen drinking or just go number or work harder. Like how did you find your way to learn all this?
Well, you know, first of all, by screwing up. You know, I also like to say that really there are no mistakes in life. It's just it's all lessons for us. So, you know, at first, it was depression and antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds. You know, I needed to get stable. Then therapy, and you know, it's almost 10 years now since my healing process, and so I stumbled my way through working with yoga, working with therapists, learning about healing, learning about, you know, how the human brain develops, how our personalities are formed, how we relate to one another as humans. And so this long journey, it sort of first was like I call it a process of coming home. And it really was finding myself, right? So healing became, who actually am I? And that in itself became a spiritual path for me. So not just learning who I am at my core, which is my essence, my soul, my spirit, but the fact that I'm connected to this even bigger sense, this bigger something else, whatever you want to call it, you know, the universe, God, we have different names for it. But that sort of drives all of that I do and all of who I am. And I am this limitless and boundless thing that's actually a part of this bigger and greater thing. And it's what connects us all to one another. And it came to me as I was really just trying to heal my own trauma from childhood, which was really, really painful. And so out of sitting with the darkest and deepest pain and trauma of my life came this feeling of this unconditional, tender, caring, and gentle love that was holding me in the process.
Yeah.
And all I could say was that it was otherworldly, like it was just divine, this divine force that was holding me through while I was going through this really difficult and dark stuff, and how I put one foot in front of the other. And then COVID happened, and I was so freaked out because I got triggered. I got re-triggered when the store shelves were empty. It really triggered my the way I grew up with empty shelves in stores. And I started to stick really closely to a spiritual practice. It was just meditation and breath work at first. And I started to notice how it grounded me. And it let me sit with my fear without getting mixed in with the fear of the past, because it was scary in the beginning, COVID, right?
Yeah. Now
And so then yeah, go ahead.
what were you saying?
Yeah. So then I started to develop my own sort of like morning routine, and it became this deep spiritual practice. And then I started writing. And in the writing, I started to sort of connect the dots. I started writing the book for my own healing, but I started to see the gift in my pain. And that was to share it with other people so that I can provide hope for those who are suffering, for those who feel alone, for those who feel like they can never get through their pain. And so I wanted to offer the steps that I sort of worked through myself and finding my own freedom, hoping that they can be, sort of a bit of a guide for other people who might be also feeling, like you said, everything's amazing, but something doesn't quite feel right on the inside. So I just wanted to really help heal other hearts,
Yeah. And I think that for me, that's the purpose of life, is using our creative talents to help others. And that's exactly what you're doing through the book, is you're sharing and helping people not to feel alone. Because I think a lot of times it feels like our loneliness feels very lonely. It's like no one else feels this way. I'm looking at Instagram, everyone's so happy and successful and whatever, and I think it's important to talk about these dark sides and know you're not alone and there is a way out, which is what your book does.
Yeah, totally. I think it's so hard now, with social media, and we're constantly comparing and competing, which only, makes the isolation even worse. And so I just sort of wanted to remind people that, like, don't compare your insides, meaning your inner experience, whatever you're struggling with, to somebody else's exterior, the facade, because you don't really know what that person's going through. So like my book, perfect, beautiful cover, right? And the invitation is like, come see what's under the hood, like come see the trauma that I carried, and come see like what I'm living with and how hard it was, and then where it led me, because you too can get through whatever it is that you're going through, so that then you can go and do that creative thing and sort of do that, do whatever it was that you're here to create and bring forth.
And so for those that are listening today that are feeling numb, that are feeling disconnected, that don't know who they are, what are some of the first steps they can take? I mean, obviously you write about this in your book and through your seminars, but what are some of the first steps we could even do today to help ourselves?
Well, I think, I hated when people told me this in the beginning of my journey, but it's to slow down. It's really, we've forgotten how to slow down. And like I said before, the pace of life is so crazy. And so it's just slowing down, meaning even when you're walking down the street and you're rushing because you're going to be late for the bus or whatever, like let the bus go and just slow down and like be present, as you're putting your feet on the pavement. And so just doing everything slower and connecting to our breath. So we're constantly living out of the head, which tells us we have to do all the time and that being tired is not acceptable. We have to be productive. So it all starts with slowing down and reconnecting to the body, and then from there you start to feel and hear these nudges of like, oh, actually this sounds good, or this would feel good. And so it's slowing down and then listening to those, like, then intuition has space to come up and be like, actually, I would like to, that's how it came for me. I was going to go to school to be a therapist. I got accepted into NYU. And when I started slowing down, something started to be like, you need to write. The story needs to be told. And it was a crazy, risky path, because here I am exposing my deepest, darkest wound versus just doing more, which was get another degree, 4 years of school. That would be lovely because it would keep me busy. And that's my preferred way of coping. Yeah. And so it's the number one step is to slow down, connecting with the body, which we can do a lot through breath. And so I offer a lot of free breathing stuff on my Instagram. And if you read the book, at the end of the book, there's a whole link of resources that I provided also for free: meditations, playlists, journaling, prompts. So obviously I would love if everyone read the book, because that's why I wrote it, so if you're struggling, check it out. And then hopefully that can be just a way of support.
resource. And I feel like some of our listeners are probably listening and being like, oh yeah, sounds great. I'm just going to meditate and relax. And how am I going to pay my rent? Like, so what would you say to those people? Like, do you find now that you've slowed down and reconnected with your body that you're actually more successful?
It's so everyone wants to hear yes, but it's yes and so yes. However, I'm still human, so I still struggle, right? So like I did put out a beautiful book, I built a beautiful website, I get to work, I get to offer my spiritual practice at the Four Seasons New York starting this May. So obviously more successful. But, like we talked this week, like we talked before, this week I went on vacation to rest because it's been 4 months of nonstop. And I'm really struggling because the human part of me my mind is still there making noise, and I'm overthinking and I'm feeling guilty about resting. And so stuff always comes up. I'm just now able not to get so attached to it and so hold it tenderly and, care for myself by just being like, it's okay that this struggle is happening within me. That's the human side to us, where it's not just supposed to be all unicorns and rainbows, right? Like it's the pain and the pleasure. So it's both, and I think that's why for me, healing is about wholeness, and it's integrating all of those experiences into all of it is acceptable and all of it is okay. And loving myself fully while I'm tired or confused or overthinking, while I love myself, while I'm fabulous and, having photo shoots for promos and stuff. So
yeah, it's
about integrating and bringing it all in.
Yeah, because like you said, it's never going to be all sunshine and rainbows. It's going to be a struggle daily, but it's just like you said, finding that inner like fountain of I am already complete. I don't need to do 1,000 other things to be complete, to be the person I need to be.
Totally. Now it's okay to play, right? If you're coming from that space, like I'm already complete, I'm already full, but how much more fun can I have here? What else can I create? It's a completely different energy that we're then bringing because our survival isn't tied to the success or something. Yeah. We're just doing it because it feels good to play and to, have fun and to do something amazing. So yeah.
And that's what we talk about a lot on the podcast as well, is like getting back to play, getting back to our childhood self of who we wanted to be, our dreams and aspirations that we've totally forgotten about and just thrown aside because once again, we have to pay our rent or whatever, it's like coming back to that to feel fulfilled and feel good.
Totally. And that's a result of the disconnection too, right? Like it's that getting back to that inner child and remembering like what brought you joy when you were little, and connecting with that feeling. And okay, what does that look like now that we're older? Like we don't have to lose play just because we're told we have to be responsible, like, yeah, you got to pay rent, but like go and, run around and get in some trouble too. Like all of it is part of the human experience. And anytime we're living out of this space, I need to, I should, we're really disconnecting from, from the soul and from the joy and from the play, which I think are essential.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's a beautiful note to end on. And where can people pick up the book Unraveling and connect with you online?
The book is available on Amazon. So whether you're listening in Paris and France or in the States or anywhere else in the world, it's on Amazon. So it's just look up Unraveling. And the easiest way to reach me is through my website, which is just www.martahobbs.com, or on Instagram at Marta Hobbs. And I would love to hear from whoever is listening.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Marta. And I can't wait to see what you'll do next.
Thank you. Thanks so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate this chat.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.